Notice in this model we have 3/6 and 1/2. Notice they both have the same shape. 3/6 is equivalent to 1/2. 1/2 is a reduced form of 3/6. Now we're not going to carry pattern blocks with us every time we want to do fractions. That's just not an efficient way to work with fractions. Let's talk about how we can reduce to lowest terms mathematically. If I have 3/6 here, and I know it's going to reduce to 1/2, I'm essentially dividing by a factor that both 3 and 6 share. If I divide by 3, I'm going to get 3 divided by 3 equals 1, and 6 divided by 3 equals 2. Notice that 3/3 is also equivalent to 1. When you divide a number by 1, you get that number. So for instance, if you divide 4 by 1, you're going to get 4. You could write it like this. 1 goes into 4 4 times. So by dividing by a common factor, you're not really changing this number. I mean to say it this way. The numbers look different than here, but the value or the amount that it represents is the same. Just like when we had the 3 triangles and the trapezoid. The shapes look the same. It's the same amount, it's just reorganized differently or organized differently. So that's really what reducing fractions is all about. We're changing the numbers into their lowest form, but the numbers are going to be representing the same amounts. So let's go ahead and do some more examples. Let's say we have 10/16, and we want to reduce this to lowest terms. Now, what we might want to do is consider the factors that 10 and 16 have, and we want to pick a factor that they both share. Off to the side, you can list your factors, and that might be helpful. So 1 times 10 and 2 times 5 make up the factors for 10. For 16, we have 1 times 16, 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. Notice that we have a few factors that the 10 and the 16 share. They both have a 1, and they both have a 2. Now if I were to divide 10/16 by 1, 10 divided by 1 is going to give me 10. And 16 divided by 1 will give me 16. Now notice that 10/16 is exactly the same as the fraction we started with. So dividing by 1 is not really changing anything. So let's pick a number or a factor that's greater than 1 that are both present in both the numerator and the denominator. And in this case, it's going to be 2. So if I rewrite this, 10/16 divided by 2, I'm going to get 5/8. Now I know that this is reduced because the only factors that I have for 5 are 5 and 1, and the only factors I have for 8 are 1 and 8 and 2 and 4, And the only common factor that these two share are the ones. And if there are no other factors, this fraction is reduced. Let's do a couple of more. Let's say we have 4/20. Again, I'm going to write down my factors, and I'm looking for the greatest common factor. Greatest means the largest number. Common means that they both have this number. They both share it. And a factor are the numbers that make up that product, or the numbers that we see here. Sometimes we see greatest common factor as GCF, and that's what that means. That's an acronym for greatest common factor. So the factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. For 20 we have 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. Notice when I'm listing my factors, I start with my lowest number or lowest factor and then move up. And that's a good way for me to make sure I get all of my factors. Also notice here when I have 4 times 5, there are no other numbers between 4 and 5, and so I know that there are no other factors. Let's look at the common factors and pick the one that's the greatest. We have the 1s, we have the 2s, and it looks like we have 4s. It doesn't look like we have any other factors that they share. So 4 is going to be our greatest common factor. Knowing that, that's what I'm going to divide by. Divide by 4, both the numerator and the denominator, and that's going to give me 1/5. Now I know for sure this is a reduced fraction. 1 will only go into 1, and 5 is made up of a 5 and a 1. I can't reduce that any further. Let's do one more. Let's say we have 24/36. I'm going to list my factors on the side, starting with 1. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, and I know 5 doesn't go into 24, so that's my last one. Starting with 1, I'm going to check out the 36. So 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. Okay, I've got lots of factors here, so be really careful when you're trying to find them. I'm going to cross off the ones that I have in common. So the 1s are common, so are the 2s. Looks like 3s are common. 4s. Then I have a 6 here. I also have 6s here. I'll go ahead and cross off both of those. I have an 8, but I don't have an 8 here. I have a 12 and a 12. And the last one is a 24, but I don't have a 24 here. So I'm going to go back to this 12 and say that that is my greatest common factor. Now that I have the greatest common factor, I'm going to divide by that number. 24 divided by 12 is 2. 36 divided by 12 is 3. This fraction is indeed reduced. The only factors that I have are 2 and 1, and here I have 3 and 1. And again, we're not going to use 1 as a common factor, so this is reduced.